So you've signed up for an ultramarathon and you've been training your little butt off. Let me guess, you're starting to get a little hungry with all this running you've been doing. Now, I've picked up a few tips over the years that have helped keep my guts in check and my races on track. But before we get stuck into that, there's something very important that we need to cover off. You see, as ultra runners, we're no longer eating food and drinking water. Listen carefully. We're
consuming nutrition and hydration.
It's very important. Now, I think it would be amiss to do a video like this and not at least touch on food in general, your breakfast, lunch and dinners. What we're asking of our body in training and racing ultramarathons is above average. And so all of the recommended daily intakes, I think, necessarily need to be exceeded. For me, typically that looks like this. Breakfast is either porridge or toast with banana, peanut butter and honey, one of the best combinations known to man. Lunch, I'm lucky with the shop that I have a lot of food at my disposal, but it's usually a toasty or some kind of bowl with vegetables and eggs. And then for dinner, it's typically a kid-friendly meal of protein, carbohydrate, and a bunch of vegetables. I do enjoy a cheeky beer or two, particularly after a long run, but I'm not one to count calories, not in a daily consumption format. The one thing I do try and keep tabs on more specifically is my protein intake, where I'm trying to consume over 100 grams of protein each day. That works roughly in that 1.5 grams of protein for every kilogram of body weight per day. I find for me that that's just the number that helps keep energy levels up and means I'm able to sustain the amount of training that I'm embarking on for these silly races that we embark on. Now, obviously, your pre-race meals are going to look a little different depending on two things: what you've been used to eating and also what time of day your race starts. I keep either porridge or toast with banana, peanut butter and honey on the menu, like I do every other day, just to keep things familiar. If the race is starting in the morning, I like to consume that around 2 hours before the race starts. If it is a race that starts later in the day, UTMB for example, is a 6 p.m. start. But what I recommend you do here is just eat more breakfasts. What you're wanting to do is keep the carbohydrate intake simple. Don't go crazy on the proteins, the fats, you do you. But for me, I find that just loading up on simple carbohydrates in familiar quantities with familiar foods is the way that you're going to best set yourself up to have a great day, or 2, or 3 in some cases. Now, this is the bit that I imagine most people are interested in: eating during exercise. I like to think about it in 3 different ways. The first of which is that more is better. The great triathlon coach, Olaf Alexander Boo, says this: you can't have speed without power, and you can't have power without calories. The more food we're able to get in during exercise increases our ability to keep moving. The second thing I like to keep in mind with regards to eating during exercise is that your tolerance can be trained. I used to max out at around 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour of running, and that was pretty normal. I wouldn't bonk very often at all, and I'd finish runs feeling okay. But as I've turned my attention to eating more while I'm running over the past year or so, I find myself eating regularly upwards of 120 grams of carbohydrates per hour. Now, I don't recommend that you go straight to that number immediately, but in my experience, I was able to progress up to that limit, and I'm now finding that the energy I have at the end of a long run is so much superior to what it used to be when I was eating less. And finally, you need to be counting them carbs. Sure, there's people like Courtney Dauwalter that just vibe it all out and absolutely crush 24 hours a day. But I've found that quantifying my carbohydrate intake in both training and races has given me a far superior ability to both analyze and plan my nutrition. And so now we get to my specific race day nutrition plan. And it's exactly that. I have a plan. Because I've meticulously quantified the amount of carbohydrates that I consume in my training, I know that what I can sustainably tolerate is around 120 grams of carbohydrates per hour. In order to help me execute that plan for hours and hours on end, I've set up an alarm that beeps on my watch every hour. Watch goes beep, eat another gel. I'm like Pavlov's dog. I find that the Precision 90-gram gels go down super easy, and only having to fuss around with getting a gel out of your vest once every hour is actually super sustainable. And then I supplement the carbohydrate that I get from those gels with drink mix in my soft flasks. I usually save water for the aid stations where I'll have a crew if I'm feeling like some plain old water, but 90-gram gels every hour, supplemented by drink mix in my soft flasks. It's how I hit the 120 grams per hour sustainably. Now, the more that I train myself to eat while running, the easier it seems to go down. But I used to find that slowing down while I was eating seemed to help things sit a little easier in my guts. I find that now I can just keep pushing at whatever pace I'm maintaining. But if this is all new to you, then yeah, I used to find that slowing down a little bit just helped things go down a little easier and stay down. And lastly, I think it's probably also wise to have a bit of a backup plan. These ultra marathons are always a bit of an unknown, and for the sake of throwing some snacks that you might feel like eating into a drop bag, leaving them with some crew, or even just relying on what the aid stations have to offer. It's always nice to know that if things aren't going to plan, there is another option. I picked up some Coke from an aid station during UTMB last year, and it absolutely turned my day around. So much so that I now make sure I have Coca-Cola available with me at all my races. But look, ultramarathons are an exploration into the unknown, and having some contingencies to make sure you can get at least some food in is probably a good idea. And I think that's about all I have to say on nutrition and fueling for ultramarathons. Now, I'm super lucky that I get a bit of support from Precision Fuel and Hydration, but I wholeheartedly stand behind their products. They're single-handedly the brand that sustained me through all of the ultras that I raced last year. If you're asking for a recommendation, yes, I recommend them. If you're asking me for a discount code, no, I don't have one of those for you. But look, basically find whatever works for you and train with that. And that should put you in the best position possible to crush your next ultramarathon with minimal to no GI distress. Unfortunately, ultramarathon running is not always as easy as following the 10-step plan, but yeah, if it works out for you, great. If not, then I don't know, you're on your own. Don't blame me. But good luck. Hopefully this was helpful, and I guess I'll catch you in the next one.